But,
Perfect.
yeah.
Maybe something we need to look and see if they're there.
Mr. City Manager, we're ready for open study.
Mayor, members of the council, Chief Fred Ferris has a couple of things he'd like to share with you tonight.
We're going to talk a little bit tonight about a couple of different things. The first we're going to talk about is the quarterly crime stat reports that I know we talked about last goal setting session last year. And I know it's a priority for the council, it's also a priority for How's that? Is that better?
Perfect.
So I know it was a priority for the goal-setting session for us to provide you all with a little bit more insight as to what's going on in the community. It's also important to me to also make a lot of that information available through the technology that we have. We're still working through some of those issues, but ultimately our end goal is to have a community crime map that is basically real-time data, very generalized to locations, but allow the public using a system we already have to log in on the website, see heat maps, crime that's going on in certain areas and things like that. What we have coming in the future is a quarterly report that we're going to present to the council. It'll be in a written report form, and it's not going to look like you're going to see now, but I'm going to have Captain Burris come up and talk about what this quarter's report looks like as far as the numbers and give you an idea of what you'll see in future. We'll also do comparative numbers so that you can see last quarter to this quarter, and then my intent is at the end of the year we would do like a year-end summary where you can see how this current year stacked up against the previous year. Keep in mind that we're not even into a full year of data with this system. So the numbers aren't going to be accurate until we probably get a full year, because now we're trying to compare last quarter using an old system to this quarter using a new system, and it's just been a nightmare. So what we're going to give you this quarter is just this quarter's stats, and I'll let Captain Burris talk about that for just a few minutes.
Good evening.
Use the microphone there.
I will try. I wander. I'll try not to. I'll hold on to this so I don't. Good evening. I just wanted to talk to you about the stats a little bit that we're going to be showing. As the chief said, because of some of the data migration issues there were between the prior RMS or report management system that we had and our current one, we started the new system in October of 2021. So I would anticipate that potentially for the fourth quarter of 2022, we could have some pretty accurate comparisons between the last quarter of the previous year. The annual ones obviously will not be quite there. We do believe that it's hard to know. If you really want to know where you're going, kind of setting a map and a goal of where we want to be, we need to know where we're coming from and where we've been in the past. So that's kind of the reason for it. So these are some of the things you're going to see. They will be, as we said, compared to previous quarters and previous years. Total police department calls for service. This does not include fire calls, EMS calls, just strictly police calls. Almost 5,000 calls for the second quarter of 2022. 1,673 911 calls. We took of all those calls for service, we actually took 856 reports. The vast majority of those are actual offense reports, actually documenting crimes that occurred. 805 citations, 204 warnings. Those would be for traffic stops where no citation was given. And then for accidents, for traffic collisions, we investigated 70 non-injury accidents, 22 injury, and 24 hit-and-run accidents. Wrong way. Okay. So arrests, we're going to break those down by felony, misdemeanor, and DUI. In the second quarter of 2022, we had 20 felony arrests, 266 misdemeanor arrests, and 5 DUI arrests. Now, some of these will be broken down further for our internal reports. We will, I don't know if the chief touched on this, we will actually have 2 versions of the report that we disseminate to the council and to the public. One will actually be the public report, and then we'll have a report that's internal for the police department only, and that's strictly because of sunshine law, some other requirements, things that we couldn't divulge. It might be a little more specific when it comes to sensitive issues like sexual offenses, things like that we can't disseminate to the public. But the actual numbers will be there for everybody. Just some of the specifics might not, but we're going to have arrests on there. And then breaking down some of the incidents, some of the offenses that we took. Obviously, we had no homicides in the second quarter of 2022. We have not had a homicide since November of 2021. 5 sex offenses, 3 robberies, 60 assaults, 5 weapons violations, and 31 narcotics violations. Under property crimes, we've investigated 21 burglaries, 35 auto thefts, 189 thefts, 6 forgeries, and 48 vandalisms or property damage reports. And that's it as far as the types of numbers we will be presenting to you. They will be in a different format. It'll be in a report format, much nicer looking than this. But if you have any questions, we're also going to make sure that on the reports we address any large statistical deviations. As an example, several months ago, we saw a huge spike in thefts. We did not have a huge spike in thefts. We started reporting our thefts. Previously, as an example, if we were dispatched on a call where somebody had something stolen and they might say, I don't really want to make a report, don't want you to investigate it, just want to let you know, we may not have actually taken a theft report, but now we are. If we're made aware of a crime, we're taking a report on it. Even if it's not investigated, even if the victim doesn't want to pursue, we're still documenting that because it gives us a much more accurate snapshot of what crime is actually taking place in our city. So, Chief?
While these are important to you, these numbers are all equally important to us as we kind of change how we're doing policing and looking more at data as how we're driving our enforcement activities. So rather than, kind of this blanket approach to either traffic enforcement or crime enforcement, we want to use the data and those numbers to help drive that. So by us getting a better glimpse of it, using those things like the heat map tools, we can direct enforcement to specific locations and hopefully kind of combat those things. So, any questions on any of this before I move into the next topic?
So, Chief, within these numbers, do those contain the folks that are picked up on warrants, that there might be a warrant out in Kansas City, but we picked them up, or that type of offense, or are those completely separate from these?
I don't think we're tracking the warrant arrest. They may fall under misdemeanors, correct, or that type of arrest?
I actually just had this conversation with our analyst the other day, and we're actually going to start tracking warrants. We're not going to, these are actual new charges, but we are going to start tracking warrant arrests too, because I think that's important to see how many people we're picking up. We're physically arresting them. We have documentation of, the arrest, but it's also something that takes up our officers' time and that we're obligated to do, so we're going to document that too. But these would be just new charges. We
could probably add that as a category then too.
Yeah, and we are, and we just discussed that the other day. We are going, from now on, we're going to add warrant arrests. Felony, we're going to break that down. Felony arrest, misdemeanor, felony warrant arrest, misdemeanor warrant arrest.
Any other questions? Just one other thing that I know when we've looked at the crime and arrest statistics in the past, I remember we've noticed, I think it was maybe with the traffic offenses, we were looking at the percentage of arrests that were involving Gladstone residents versus non-Gladstone residents. And I remember when we looked at that, I think we were all surprised at how high a percentage of the arrests were not Gladstone residents.
So some of that data you're probably referring to, we have to report to the state on our bias-based police, any bias policing.
That's it.
So those numbers will come out. And for us being we're completely surrounded by Kansas City. It's, our major routes through Gladstone are, transient population. I mean, most people going up North Oak and Antioch are going through Gladstone, not necessarily to Gladstone. So that does account for a big part of the discrepancy in those numbers. But I don't see them as disproportionate based on number of stops or anything. It's just something we have to be able to explain to the public.
Yeah. One of the things we found interesting looking into this a little deeper last time.
Sure.
But I think the statistics are great, and I'd give up trying to marry an old system with the new system. I think we can wait for the quarterly comparisons to make sure we're comparing apples to apples.
Yeah.
Because I've tried doing that, and I know what a nightmare it is.
It'll make your eyeballs spin opposite directions, we found, so we're trying to avoid that as much as possible.
Thank you.
Okay. Next thing we're going to talk about is our interest in entering into an MOU with the FBI and the Child Exploitation Human Trafficking Task Force. As you're aware, we do have one of our detectives that's assigned full-time to the FBI's Heartland Regional Computer Forensics Lab, the RCFL. It's a great task force for us to belong to. The amount of technology and computers that we have in our cases now is so overwhelming. It's nice for us to have somebody that's dedicated to that, and we get priority at that lab. That's a full-time position. What I'm looking to add an officer or detective to is this task force where they actually have part-time positions available. We don't lose that body. There's no salary subsidies or anything like that other than maybe some overtime depending on the operation. But it gives us the opportunity to have somebody that's federally deputized that can be used in these investigations. Just in the last month, we've had 2 significant cases that we're involved in that we're working that involved either employment exploitation / human trafficking or human trafficking prostitution. Having somebody assigned to that task force is quite a force multiplier for us because it gets us the ability to bring in those additional resources. It gets our detectives the additional training to help recognize those cases and present those cases to AUSA if federal charges are filed. The reason this one's so close to my heart is I was actually a member of this task force as an officer years ago. Some of the most rewarding cases I've worked as an investigator were involving either rescuing these young girls or working these cases where we're actually going after some of the most evil people on the planet. Again, this is really a net zero for us or a cost zero for us because we don't pay anything to it. We just have that ability to have somebody on that task force. The other day when we were working a case, I was able to get on the phone even before we're on it. And any agency would have this availability, but to be able to pick up the phone and say, hey, we think we've got this going on, and the special agent in charge down at the FBI office said, I've got 4 people on the way up to you now. And within 20 minutes, we were swarmed by federal agents that should be working this case. So that's our hope, is that we can look at opportunities like this for additional partnership opportunities with federal, state, or other local agencies, much like we're doing with some of the other officer-involved shooting team, this co-located dispatching. Obviously, just trying to work more efficiently with the resources we have and multiply that force that we have available to us. Any questions on that?
Just a comment.
Yeah, please.
Chief, I just want to commend you and the department for bringing this opportunity to us.
Thank you.
Because I think it's extremely important, and clearly you think it is, and I think this is an important resource. So thank you for bringing this opportunity to us.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for your comments.
And I believe that's the end of my slides. Oh, I'm sorry, I do have one more. Are those on here, Carl? I'm going the wrong way. Mr. Wingerson asked if I just give you a quick overview. We did active shooter. We have annual active shooter training. We just did it last week. We utilized St. Andrew, the Apostle School, loaned us the school since the kids are out. The officers, in light of some of the recent incidents where getting into buildings became a challenge, I want to thank Chief Doherty and his staff for arranging for us to have a breaching training door available that I had never seen before. And their personnel worked with ours in teaching them actually how to use the tools to get into rooms. So they spent a couple of hours doing that, and then they went over to the school where they actually practiced the techniques that we train for active shooting. And there's a few photos on here now where you can see the device. That's a enormously heavy door that you're able to bang on and rip on and everything else. And fortunately, it doesn't belong to us, so we borrowed it. But it gave them some great opportunity to use tools that they normally wouldn't use. We are going to equip the 2 supervisors' cars with the equipment needed to get into buildings like this in the very near future. So we wanted to get them all trained on it, and it was a very productive week. I had a really nice letter from the principal of St. Andrew. He was just thrilled to have our personnel up there, and so they were a pleasure to work with. So it was a very productive week for us. And that's the end of my information.
Beautiful, thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you.
We'll take a couple of minutes and then start the regular meeting in probably about 5 minutes. Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to the August 8th, 2022 regular meeting of the Gladstone City Council and call this meeting to order. Madam Clerk, 3 of our current members of City Council are present, and we barely have a quorum. We have 1 vacancy on the council, and Councilman Malams is not able to be here this evening. If everyone would please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Item 4 on the agenda is approval of the agenda for tonight's meeting. Is there any changes to the agenda? Hearing none, the agenda will be approved. Item 5, approval of the minutes from the July 25th, 2022 closed City Council meeting.
Mayor Garnes.
Mayor Pro Tem Moore.
I move for the approval of the July 25th closed City Council meeting minutes.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the July 25th, 2022 closed City Council meeting minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The minutes are hereby approved. Item 6 is approval of the minutes from the July 25th, 2022 regular City Council meeting.
Mayor?
Councilman Fowler.
I move to approve the July 25th, 2022 regular City Council meeting minutes.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the minutes. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the July 25th, 2022 regular City Council meeting minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The minutes are hereby approved. Item number 7, communications from the audience. Is there any member of the audience who would like to address City Council on a matter that is not on this evening's agenda? If so, please step to the podium and give us your name and address for the record.
Becky Webb, 3965 Northeast 63rd Terrace. I was unable to attend the last council meeting, and yet I was able to watch it online, and I'm glad I did, because I feel like the council needs to be aware of some inaccurate information that was shared. I am in Carriage Hill, 7 through 9. I have several neighbors here, if you would all raise your hands, in support of our concern over the Airbnb. However, you had a person that spoke at the last meeting, and she gave you some information that was untrue. She insinuated that our paid position for an executive director was not something that the neighborhood was aware of. That is 100% incorrect. They were all notified every email address in December of 2021, and they had full disclosure of all of our financial records. So this was not something that was done under the table, so to speak. And as we go forward and work with you on this Airbnb issue, I feel like I need to protect the integrity of our neighborhood, that you understand that would be something we would never, ever do. So going forward, I hope that you will understand. Mr. Wingerson was even taken aback. There is no transition of power. We are a board of 9 very strong, hardworking people trying to resolve this Airbnb. However, we have been waylaid a little bit by a disgruntled former board member that has wreaked some havoc and cost us hours of time. We want to move forward with our Airbnb concerns and get this resolved, but I feel like we have to have you understand where we are coming from. Questions?
Thank you. No, and I appreciate that. I think also since the last meeting, I think this same issue has gotten more attention. It's either Kansas City, Missouri, or Jackson County has also decided they've got a much larger problem than they realized and are going to have to deal with it. And so I think we're still a little bit ahead of the game, but I know this is a much larger problem, and there's other minds than ours that are working on a solution to it. I don't know what the solution is yet, but I know the problem goes beyond Gladstone.
So you are actively working on a solution or
Yes.
some, okay.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I think I've said at previous meetings, we had gotten an inkling that this was going to become an issue several months ago and had started looking into what can be done, what should be done, do we have enough ordinances in place right now, or do we need to do something? We thought we were being proactive and trying to address it before it became a problem. And then, you know, in the last, 2 meetings, we found we weren't that proactive. It's already become a problem. But we were already on it. I don't know, Mr. Wingerson, do you have any sort of a time frame?
Yeah, I think the city will be able to make a clear interpretation in the next 3 or 4 weeks about what our current code says on this topic and how enforceable our current code is as well. So 3 or 4 weeks.
Okay. And I appreciate you bringing the issue to our attention. I think I've got one on my block also that I was not aware of, but I'm aware of now. And yeah, the things that were being reported were not consistent with what I understood the way these things work. So obviously it's being exploited, there's a problem, we have to figure out how to fix it.
Okay. We appreciate all your efforts, and we hope we could get this resolved.
And we'll make sure that you all are closely involved in reviewing what we come up with. Hopefully it'll be a solution for all of us.
Appreciate it.
You bet. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My name is Russ Tuschik, 3995 Northeast 63rd Terrace. I am the said executive director for the Carriage Hill 7 through 9 Homeowners Association. And for the record, Becky Webb neglected to say that she is, in fact, the president and has been the president of our HOA for several months, and prior to that, vice president. I, too, am a past president and past treasurer. And I'm here for 2 reasons. I want to touch a little bit on the HOA issue, just from my perspective, because I've been working with Mr. Wingerson and the president of the Carriage Hill 1 through 6 Ellington Estates neighborhood, which adjoins us, which is the older part of Carriage Hill. But just like Becky, for the sake of integrity and character, I need to diffuse in your minds and Mr. Wingerson's minds and everyone who sees the archive videos of these meetings that the HOA did not hire someone and keep it under the rug. It was fully disclosed in emails, financial statements. Anyone who knows me knows that I paper people to death. Emails are thorough and complete. Everything I'm showing you here in this binder is stuff that our residents saw. I can't help it if they didn't attend a meeting. I can't help it if they didn't read what was published, but what was said last week was highly inaccurate. And Mr. Mayor, I know we don't know each other, but I do get your Christmas cards each year. I appreciate it. And the reason I get them, if you don't remember, is I served the city of Gladstone for about 27 years or longer, since 1993, as a member and chairperson and vice president of the Gladstone Industrial Development Authority. And in all those years, I never missed a meeting. And I'm very proud of the service I was able to give to the city when we did bond deals for apartment complexes and rehabs, and you know, that's kind of come to an end now with the low interest rates, but I hope I helped the city, and I think anyone who knew me through that time knows that I'm a person of honor, character, integrity. I've known Mr. Wingerson since the early 90s. He's a board member with someone who knows me since I've been born, and that's JC, one of the better realtors. Just ask JC when you see him next week at the NNI board meeting if you go, and he will vouch for my credibility, honesty, and integrity. And Councilwoman Moore, I don't know you, but I know you are big on grassroots civic involvement. It's there in your bio. That's what I enjoy most. For many years, I was president of the St. Charles School Board, and one of the first things I did when I got to be president is I took the bottom of the agenda, which was comments from the parents, and put it to the front of the agenda so that we could hear them first and they could go home and get on with their lives. And I know Gladstone prides itself on hearing from the people who live here when there's an issue of concern. And Tina, I'm just going to call you Tina because I've known you since my kids were t-ball, flag football, and she helped me for so many years with our children as they grew up. They're now either side of 30 in different cities, but I think Tina can also vouch for our HOA in my neighborhood. She came to speak at our invitation for the public safety bond issue, And there's just a good long history, and anything that was said last week that besmirches that should be ignored, for the record. Now, that was my input as executive director. My role does not encompass being here. I'm more like an assistant city manager where I help the people or I help the council, but I don't really make policy or do legislation. It's more administrative help to the executive. So I'm here now speaking to you as a resident, but a very knowledgeable and informed resident that used to practice law, and everyone I tell that I meet, I don't practice law anymore for various reasons. But what is getting us is that we think it's clear as can be that R1 zoning says single-family residences. And I've got a slew of paperwork here that I just printed off from the Airbnb listings saying baseball teams, 12 people, 5 families. There's one in our neighborhood, there's one in Carriage Hills 1 through 6 on Bales. And if you just look at the evidence, it is very clear that this is not a single-family residence and it's not being used as such. And that's what it's zoned for. And what I would say to the council, and I will say more to Scott as we work through this, is if I was Tom Bodette and I bought that house as a LLC, and this is a corporate ownership from an Iowa LLC. This is not a local person who owns the house and they're not living there. But if I was Tom Bodette and put a little sign on the front that says Motel 6 will keep the light on, I think you guys would have sent a letter like yesterday. And true, the best thing to do is our covenants and deed restrictions if we can enforce them without going bankrupt. But our argument to the city council and to the city manager is, why must we bankrupt ourselves with legal fees at the rate of $325 an hour if the city has the power and the ability to shut this down, and now, not 3 weeks, 4 weeks more. This has been going on since May, when the president of Carriage Hills 1 through 6 Ellington Estates met with City Hall officials at City Hall. May, June, July. How much time does it take? And then, not to correct you, Mr. Mayor, but the record actually is Kansas City, Missouri passed an ordinance in 2018. They are way ahead of us. What popped up in the news last week was they are now doing what I would call a compliance audit to see how many of the Airbnbs they got wind of are actually complying with their ordinance. And it's probably, my guess would be 40% maybe. So I think they're ahead of us because they have an ordinance, and that ordinance, my understanding of it, is that to have an Airbnb, you need 55% of the adjoining properties to sign off on it. If you don't get 55% approval, no Airbnb. So something like that, I think, would solve our problems. And again, thank you to all the residents. If you want to raise your hand again, who's here, they don't need to speak tonight. The latest development was this week, next to Mr. Gillam's house, was a construction crew of 3 big, huge trucks. Originally, they were blocking the driveway, and the police were called because it's a sidewalk violation when it's blocking. And the trash was just overflowing. The big issue is trash, trash, trash. And the owner, who is an absentee owner, didn't put the trash out for Republic to pick up on Tuesday, so that problem multiplied itself due to negligence or some other unknown reason. And they also house medical patients there, so who knows what type of biohazard medical waste might be in those dumpsters with flies flying all around. So if we could fix this problem now instead of weeks from now, we would appreciate it, because we can't afford a lot of legal, I mean, we will do our best if we have to assess the homeowners, but then the homeowners are going to come back and say, well, gosh, if this isn't zoned for this, why are we having to spend our money? So thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you for your comments. Are there any other comments on this issue? Otherwise, I think, Abby, you're next. We're privileged tonight to have Abby, help me with your last name. Your last name?
Zadonis.
Zadonis. And the local Girl Scout who has a presentation for us this evening, so please.
Hello. Hello, I'm Abby, and I am working on my Silver Award for Girl Scouts. I have noticed that there is a big problem in this city that seems to be growing. And the problem that I have seen is that people aren't really caring about how the community looks anymore or how we are seen as a community. Me and my mom took a walk down our street to start out with my Silver Award, and as we walked down the street, we found a large number of trash, and we found cigarette butts, food trash, soda cans, water bottles, random metals, colorful plastic pieces, random paper pieces, and gloves, and way more. Just from walking down the street and back to our house. We also found a considerate number of trash pieces at the foot of the Gladstone sign, and in my opinion, that is a terrible first impression for Gladstone. This is why I think we need a cleanup day. I think the cleanup day should be the closest Saturday to Patriots Day. This year it would be September 10th. I know that there are other cleanup days for like big trash and multiple other things, but this one would be for the streets and along the sidewalks of those streets, and trust me, they need it bad. In all, I propose that we have a cleanup day. That is I propose that we have a cleanup day that is a yearly Clean Around the Streets Day, and that would be the closest Saturday to Patriots Day. Again, this year it would be September 10th. Before we get a cleanup day organized and get people to know about it, I present that we have signs around either the highways or around the very active streets in Gladstone saying, or to remind people to not throw trash out of their windows and to not litter. Thank you for your time, and I will take questions at this point.
Thank you so much. Comments, questions?
Thank you, Abby. I appreciate that, and I certainly am on your bandwagon for trash. It's bad. It's bad across the metro.
It's a very big problem.
I mean, I talked to someone the other day who nearly had an accident because she was driving down the road and there was a sofa in the middle of the road, and so it's bad. I feel confident that it's not as bad in Gladstone as it is in some other parts of the city, but I can't imagine someone throwing stuff out. I can't imagine that I would ever do that, and I don't get it when people do that, but I certainly feel very strongly and support trash cleanup at any time. Good job.
And I agree. This is, you see the problem everywhere in the city, and I know we're never going to get the whole city cleaned up, but we can certainly take care of Gladstone. I think there's a lot of people that feel the same way. A lot of the areas where there's trash that we have not been able to pick up is right away that's controlled by MoDOT, Missouri Department of Transportation. And, they are just simply overwhelmed. Everybody is saying, hey, we've got trash on MoDOT property that needs cleaning up. And so I know we're going to have to come up with something, because we'll wait forever for that. But I love the idea of a citywide cleanup day. I think there'd be a lot of people that would love to make sure that once you hit the city line, the trash stops. Good job. Thank you.
Mayor, I might suggest we add this topic to the next EMAC agenda for their consideration and championing, if that's what they choose to do. There's a couple other initiatives that they're going to consider at their next meeting, so this will fit right in that agenda.
That'll be perfect. Thank you. Any other comments from the audience?
John Bledsoe, 206 Northeast 76 Terrace, K Road, just north of Aldi's, by Hobby Hill Park. A week or so ago, either I or all the neighbors up and down Hobby Hill Park Road, 76 Terrace, got a letter in the mail from the city, and the city was thinking, oh man, this problem of this parking because of the Frisbee golf at the park needs to be addressed by eliminating all the parking from the park all the way to North Oak on my side of the street. Now, whether it's on my side of the street or not, it's irrelevant. When you get that many cars parked on one side of the street or another all the way to the park, now you got people going down that way and this way. You can't get 3 lanes in there. So, I like the concept of where this is coming from, but the practicality isn't there. The parking isn't even the main issue. The high-speed traffic flow in and out of the park by the Frisbee maniacs, their focus is to race one another from course to course. This is where the safety and the neighbors' concerns are being brought out. The situation has to be fixed. I see giving daily tickets on the weekends would get the message real quick, or just simply eliminate the Frisbee golf from the park. Then you end the speeding, you end the parking, you end the partying. The park's being called Volker Park North now. I don't know if any of you understand what that meant. 3 lanes of traffic cannot fit on a 2-lane road. There was no parking studies ever done before they slapped this Frisbee golf in. No parking signs on my side of the road is no good. Where do my friends park? The effect will cause deflation of my property value for no real reason. They don't have to have tournaments to play golf down there, Frisbee golf. They don't have to have tournaments. The regular golf players during the weekend doesn't generate that kind of traffic. Only when you all, I guess, approve for tournaments is the hundreds of cars up and down the road. You can't pass. You can't turn a fire truck down. No. Okay. I encourage for the park to go back to the tranquil place for family gatherings. Like, you know, click, click, click. I can hear the squirrels and chipmunks applauding. I propose to the city council to vote to eliminate the Frisbee golf. Any seconds? Wasn't that poetic? Young lady, you did a really bang-up job, I want to say. Have a nice night.
Thank you, Mr. Bledsoe.
Oh, when will all this be decided upon?
But the parking on 76th Terrace?
Correct.
Don't know. I had not realized until, I think, our last meeting, we had not had a report about the speeding that had been going on up and down that road, and I know the police department's aware of that. I didn't realize we were dealing with parking, because we got parking at both ends of Hobby Hill. But like you said, it's just at the tournaments that apparently have...
They don't have to have tournaments there. You know, they don't have to have tournaments there for everybody to still enjoy the Frisbee of the golf of the park, which I think you all know how I felt about the whole park going in and destroying all the nature to begin with. But that's yesterday's news.
Okay.
Have a nice day.
Thank you. Is there any other members of the audience who would like to address City Council on a matter not on this evening's agenda? If not, we'll move on to item 8, communications from City Council. Councilmember Spallo.
Nothing this evening, Mayor.
Mayor Pro Tem Moore.
Yes, Mayor, I have a couple of things. First of all, I wanted to say that Councilman Mallons and I had the opportunity on Friday night to attend the National Night Out, and had good conversations with Chief Ferris and Captain Burris, and I know they had a lot of extended efforts to make this event happen, and we had partner agencies, the Clay County Sheriff's Department and the Missouri Highway Patrol, and I know they're working hard to make this an even bigger and better event in the coming years. It was extremely hot, and I think that had an impact on the attendees, but Life Flight flew in, and everybody loved seeing that, and the kids liked that, and our fire station and ambulance were there until they got a call but it was a great effort and a great night, and I know that this is going to be a great event in future years. So I want to thank all those people who had a part in that, and all the police officers and fire department and everybody who was there. I had the chance to attend our planning commission meeting last week, and we had a full house. All of the planning commissioners were in attendance, so that was great. And two very exciting projects were approved by the planning commission that will come before us on the 22nd. So really great, exciting projects for the city of Gladstone. And my final comment is happy birthday eve to you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Yeah. 64 tomorrow. Will you still need me? And I'm not asking you, Mr. Bledsoe. Any other comments? Mayor Pro Tem, thank you. I just wanted to congratulate the winners from last week's primary election. That was a big deal for Clay County, moving toward the new and improved Clay County Commission. Wanted to congratulate Scott Wagner, who will be the Western Seat 2 Commissioner, since he won over 50% of the election. Jason Withington and Ken Jameson will be facing off in the November election for the Western at-large Commissioner seat. Joanne Lawson and Steve Walcott will be facing off in November for the Eastern at-large Commissioner seat. And then there's two others, Jay Johnson and Sherry Duffett, who will be facing off for Eastern Commissioner seat 2, but they don't represent Gladstone, so we don't care about them. Also wanted to thank Mr. Oldebecken for his voter education guide. Always appreciate your efforts, including this last election. I was going through that the night before voting, so again, appreciate your effort to educate voters and get them to the polls. The only other thing that I've got is there's a lot of things going on in Gladstone this week. Mr. Wingerson, I think I'll give you the honors. We have, what, theater in the park and household hazardous waste.
We do theater in the park this weekend, and household hazardous waste on Saturday the 13th. I want to take a second to talk about that. It's at Happy Rock Park. It's from 8 to 12, but it's only the first 200 cars. So it's a super popular event. If you have a need to get rid of household hazardous waste, early will be better for sure. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Yeah, it's always a popular event. We'll move on then to item 10 with the consent agenda. Madam Clerk, will you please explain and read the consent agenda?
The consent agenda allows the City Council to consider and approve routine items of business without discussion. Any member of the City Council, the city staff, or the public may request removal of any item from the consent agenda and request that it be considered under the regular agenda if discussion or debate of the item is desired. Items not removed from the consent agenda will stand approved upon motion by any council member, second, and unanimous vote to approve the consent agenda as published or modified. Consent agenda. Consider special event permit. Afropel of African Gospel Fest, Linden Square, Saturday, September 10th, 2022, from 5 o'clock to 9 o'clock p.m. Resolution R-22-43, a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement with Motorola Solutions for the purchase of a Service Aggregated Router, SAR, for the Emergency Services Dispatch Center in the amount of $93,998.40. Resolution R-22-44, a resolution declaring certain city property surplus and authorizing the sale and/or disposal of said property to the highest bidder via online auction, sealed bid, and/or otherwise disposed of as approved by the city manager.
Thank you. Does any member of the audience request the removal of any item from the consent agenda for discussion? City Council? No. Mr. City Manager?
No.
Is there a motion?
Mayor,
Councilmember Spallo.
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda as listed. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda as listed, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Consent agenda is approved. we'll move on with the regular agenda. Item 11, Resolution R-22-45, a resolution declaring determination of ballot order for city council elections.
Mayor Garnes,
Mayor Pro Tem Moore.
I move for the adoption of Resolution R-22-45.
Second?
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to adopt Resolution R-22-45. Is there any discussion? We have to discuss this.
Go ahead.
I have nothing prepared on this, but for many years to run for city council, the order on the ballot was the order that folks showed up at City Hall. So if you were first here on sign-up day for the election, you were first on the ballot. As city council has become so popular and everybody wants to be on city council, there's now become a scramble to be the first to get on the higher spots on the ballot. And the last couple of years, we've had people camping out all night so that they could be first on the ballot, and the advantage that brings to it. It has gotten a little crazy, and is getting crazier, so we started looking at what others do.
And it's freezing.
And yeah, and I think all of us have been here in the dark, waiting for the 8 o'clock. And so we took a look at it. We've taken a look at what some of the other cities around us are doing. I think the plan is for if you show up on that first day, you get assigned a random number, and you'll go on the ballot in the order of the random number for the first day. And then if you sign up to run after that, you'll just be added on after that. But those on the first day will be randomized for order on the ballot, so there's no preference or favoritism.
Or camping out.
Or camping out and making the police wonder why there's a vehicle in front of City Hall at midnight the night before. There have also been rumors in the distant past that city council members had the advantage because they could sneak in the back door and hang out in front of the city clerk's office and be first in line. That hasn't happened in decades, but that's one of the rumors people still believe happens here, so we want to eliminate that also. So that's that was the genesis of this. I don't know if you all
very well done.
Have other comments, but that's where we're at on this bill.
Not just much appreciated.
Yeah. If you're ever here at 5 o'clock in the morning with a large coffee waiting for City Hall to open at 8 o'clock, you know that that's a long 3 hours. Any further discussion?
No.
Hearing none, all those in favor of adopting Resolution R-22-45 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The resolution is hereby adopted. We'll move on to item 12, first reading of Bill number 22-25, an ordinance amending Schedule 8 of the Model Traffic Code, Gladstone Municipal Code, Section 4.100.020, to establish stop sign locations at the northwest and southeast corners of the intersection at North Holmes Street and Northeast 70th Street.
Mayor Garnes.
Councilmember Spallo.
I move to place Bill number 22-25 on its first reading.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to place Bill number 22-25 on its first reading. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of placing Bill number 22-25 on its first reading, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Madam Clerk, please read the bill.
First reading, Bill number 22-25. An ordinance amending Schedule 8 of the Model Traffic Code, Gladstone Municipal Code, Section 4.100.020, to establish stop sign locations at the northwest and southeast corners of the intersection at North Holmes Street and Northeast 70th Street.
Mayor Garnes.
Councilmember Spallo.
I move to accept the first reading of Bill number 22-25, waive the rule, and place the bill on its second and final reading.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the first reading of Bill number 22-25, waive the rule, and place the bill on its second and final reading. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of placing Bill number 22-25 on its second and final reading, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Madam Clerk, please read the bill.
Second reading, Bill number 22-25, an ordinance amending Schedule 8 of the Model Traffic Code, Gladstone Municipal Code, Section 4.100.020, to establish stop sign locations at the northwest and southeast corners of the intersection at North Home Street and Northeast 70th Street.
Councilmember Spallo.
I move to accept the second and final reading of Bill number 22-25 and enact it as ordinance number 4.602.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the second and final reading of Bill number 22-25 and enact the bill as ordinance number 4.602. Is there any discussion?
Mayor Garnes.
Mayor Pro Tem Moore.
For the benefit of our audience, the reason we are doing this is, my understanding, is not necessarily for long term, but because we have the police headquarters construction going on, that we felt that it was a safety issue to stop that traffic going in those directions.
Yeah, Mayor Pro Tem, that's the genesis of doing it now. That's the timing of it, but it is intended to be a permanent solution to govern traffic on Holmes. Most people believe that's a four-way intersection anyways, and with the increased number of pedestrians from the outdoor pool, community center, Heights, Linden Square, et cetera, we felt it was necessary to create a formal four-way stop there.
Thank you.
Good. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Spallo.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Moore.
Aye.
Mayor Garnes.
Aye. Bill number 22-25 stands enacted as ordinance number 4.602. We'll move on to item 13, first reading of Bill number 22-26, an ordinance amending Schedule 4 of the Model Traffic Code, Gladstone Municipal Code, Section 4.100.020, to restrict parking at certain locations on Northeast 70th Street between the hours of 12 a.m. and 6 a.m.
Mayor Garnes.
Mayor Pro Tem Moore.
I move to place Bill number 22-26 on its first reading.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to place Bill number 22-26 on its first reading. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of placing Bill number 22-26 on its first reading, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Madam Clerk, please read the bill.
First reading, Bill number 22-26, an ordinance amending Schedule 4 of the Model Traffic Code, Gladstone Municipal Code, Section 4.100.020, to restrict parking at certain locations on Northeast 70th Street between the hours of 12 o'clock a.m. and 6 o'clock a.m.
Mayor Garnes.
Mayor Pro Tem Moore.
I move to accept the first reading of Bill number 22-26, waive the rule, and place the bill on its second and final reading.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to accept the first reading of Bill number 22-26, waive the rule, and place the bill on its second and final reading. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of placing Bill number 22-26 on its second and final reading, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Madam Clerk, please read the bill.
Second reading, Bill number 22-26, an ordinance amending Schedule 4 of the Model Traffic Code, Gladstone Municipal Code, Section 4.100.020, to restrict parking at certain locations on Northeast 70th Street between the hours of 12 o'clock a.m. and 6 o'clock a.m.
Mayor Garnes.
Mayor Pro Tem Moore.
I move to accept the second and final reading of Bill number 22-26 and enact the bill as ordinance 4.603.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to accept the second and final reading of Bill number 22-26 and enact the bill as ordinance number 4.603. Is there any discussion?
Mayor Garnes.
Mayor Pro Tem Moore.
May I ask the city manager just to give us a tidbit on this too for the benefit of our audience?
Yeah, this is at the request of a business owner downtown, so that's important to know. And second of all, it restricts overnight parking for all practical purposes on 70th Street from Laughing Place Bakery to Locust on the north side of 70th Street, and from Locust to in front of Summit on the south side of 70th Street. To restrict overnight parking, there's some apartments that are close by there in the Heights, and people have found it convenient to park there. Well, what happens is the business gets ready to open and the people haven't moved their cars, and so there's no customer parking for the businesses. So that's what we're trying to correct as less onerously as we possibly can, just to try and educate the Heights people that they shouldn't park overnight there. And then it'll be free in the morning for Laughing Place, Stone Canyon, Summit Grill, all the businesses and iWorks, et cetera, et cetera.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Spallo?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Moore?
Aye.
Mayor Garnis.
Aye. Bill number 22-26 stands enacted as ordinance number 4.603. Move on with item 14, the first reading of bill number 22-27, an ordinance authorizing the city manager to enter into a cooperative agreement with the Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, to provide law enforcement resources to the Child Exploitation and Human Trafficking Task Force.
Mayor Garnis.
Councilmember Spallo.
I move to place bill number 22-27 on its first reading.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to place bill number 22-27 on its first reading. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of placing bill number 22-27 on its first reading, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Madam Clerk, please read the bill.
First reading bill number 22-27, an ordinance authorizing the city manager to enter into a cooperative agreement with the Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, to provide law enforcement resources to the Child Exploitation and Human Trafficking Task Force.
Mayor Garnis.
Councilmember Spallo.
I move to accept the first reading of bill number 22-27, waive the rule, and place the bill on its second and final reading.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the first reading of bill number 22-27, waive the rule, and place the bill on its second and final reading. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of placing bill number 22-27 on its second and final reading, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Madam Clerk, please read the bill.
Second reading, bill number 22-27, an ordinance authorizing the city manager to enter into a cooperative agreement with the Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, to provide law enforcement resources to the Child Exploitation and Human Trafficking Task Force.
Mayor Garnis.
Councilmember Spallo.
I move to accept the second and final reading of bill number 22-27 and enact it as ordinance number 4.604.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the second and final reading of bill number 22-27 and enact the bill as ordinance number 4.604. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Spallo?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Moore?
Aye.
Mayor Garnis.
Aye. Bill number 22-27 stands enacted as ordinance number 4.604. We have one more ordinance before us, bill number 22-28, an ordinance of the City of Gladstone, Missouri, to establish a procedure to disclose potential conflicts of interest and substantial interests for certain municipal officials pursuant to the state of Missouri ethics law.
Mayor Garnis.
Mayor Pro Tem Moore.
I move to place bill number 22-28 on its first reading.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to place bill number 22-28 on its first reading. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of placing bill number 22-28 on its first reading, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Madam Clerk, please read the bill.
First reading, bill number 22-28, an ordinance of the City of Gladstone, Missouri, to establish a procedure to disclose potential conflicts of interest and substantial interest for certain municipal officials pursuant to the state of Missouri ethics law.
Mayor Garnis.
Mayor Pro Tem Moore.
I move to accept the first reading of bill number 22-28, waive the rule, and place the bill on its second and final reading.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the first reading of bill number 22-28, waive the rule, and place the bill on its second and final reading. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of placing bill number 22-28 on its second and final reading, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Madam Clerk, please read the bill again.
Second reading, bill number 22-28, an ordinance of the City of Gladstone, Missouri, to establish a procedure to disclose potential conflicts of interest and substantial interest for certain municipal officials pursuant to the state of Missouri ethics law.
Mayor Garnis.
Mayor Pro Tem Moore.
I move to accept the second and final reading of bill number 22-28 and enact the bill as ordinance 4.605.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the second and final reading of bill number 22-28 and enact the bill as ordinance number 4.605. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Spallo?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Moore?
Aye.
Mayor Garnis.
Aye. Bill number 22-28 stands enacted as ordinance number 4.605. Item 16, other business. Is there any other business for city council tonight before we can get home to the bachelor? Having none, we are adjourned.